Welcome to another episode of the Journeys of Not So Ordinary People podcast, the podcast for mid career professionals. This week's topic is managing time for your success. I'm one of your co hosts, Dr. Dave Peltz, and along with me is my esteemed colleague and brother of another mother, Dr. Joe Hamlet.
What's going on, man?
What's going on, man? So, so we've been following this trend for several weeks now. I'm going to back up just a few selective intentional independence, navigating the mid career process plateau, why having a plan is necessary. A plan without action is just a plan. I stopped in my own mindset there for a second. So now we're talking about managing time for your success. So we've talked about planning, understanding where you want to be, what your strengths are. So this is building upon that plan of action. So a plan without action is just a plan. So now we're talking about setting aside that time to actually execute that plan. So, Dr. Joe, I know that was a long intro. Give us your thoughts on that.
Right. So Dave touched on it. I mean, we have been talking about plans and the importance of plans and actually brainstorming your success. So if we want our plan to be successful, this is the one thing that we can't miss or we can't not do because this is going to determine whether you're successful or not. And so if we think about managing our time, what does that look like? So you've got this nicely laid out plan, all these milestones in place, and then you don't set time against all of those, milestones or goals that you set for yourself. So how do you achieve them? Again, it's no different than jumping in your car and driving to Chicago and not having a timeline, right? Just again driving and get in the car and say, whenever I get there, I get there. That's really what you would be doing with your plan or your success plan if you're not putting times or dates or critical information in reference to how long it's going to take you to get there. Again, you can have an idea of finishing your college degree. You can have a timeline of 4 years, or you could say 20 years, or don't even have a timeline and you look up and you're 70 years old and you finish your bachelor's degree. So I know that's a little extreme, but that's what could happen if you don't set, times for those things, even if it's for your daily schedule, for example. So you got an 8 hour job. So you factor in that time that you're doing your job, specifically that. And then you come home from work. Maybe you set aside a half an hour to work toward whatever your plan for success is. That's an actual plan or setting times aside so that you don't come home and say, oh, I'll get to it tomorrow. Then tomorrow turns into next week, then next month. So something as simple as, again, maybe spending 30 minutes a day on whatever that plan is, your new business plan, your idea of starting a new business, all those types of things. If you don't set a timeline, then it doesn't happen because you keep pushing it off to the side. There's no you haven't prioritized it, so it's just going to continue to fall between the cracks. It's not going to matter as much. But if you put a timeline, then you'll be more apt to follow that time, whatever it is.
Joe, you bring up a lot of great points about committing to that timeline. And it reminds me of, when I was in the military, when I was young, dumb, and probably not as mature as I am today, although my wife might argue that. Going out to the gym and working out with these guys that have been working out for months or years. And I'm looking at them like, "God, they're big, they're strong, they're muscular, they can do this, they can do that." And I get in the gym and I'm bench pressing 45 pounds and struggling at that. I'm like, oh, help me, get it off, get it off. And then I do that like, twice in 2 weeks. And I'm looking at myself wondering why I'm not as massive as these guys. And it's two times is not going to do it
Right.
usually, for getting into shape. Like we've mentioned in the last couple of several episodes, riding our bikes and walking and you know getting that vitamin D from the sunshine. It's not just a one and done. It's a repetitive process. You have to stay dedicated to it and be consistent about it. You have to have not only that time set aside, but utilize that time that you have set aside. You mentioned college. You can't go to start college and expect the homework to do itself and the research to do itself. You have to put in the effort, you have to put in the time, you have to dedicate yourself to that, and you have to manage that time. There's a balance between work, family, your goals, your workout schedule, your mental health, whatever your hobbies are, things that you want to be doing. There's 24 hours in a day. Unless you're on another planet, that's what we're stuck with for right now. So within that 24 hours, how are you going to manage that time? If you're working full time or part time or not working, how are you managing your time to accomplish what you want to accomplish? Have you set aside that time, and are you utilizing that time for what you set it aside for? You can say, I'm going to study 5 hours a week, but if 4 of those hours you're playing video games, that's not 5 hours of study time. That's 1 hour of study time and 4 hours of screwing off. Well, or for me, that's my lifeblood, playing video games. Just kidding.
Well,
That's part of it. But
well, Dave, I was going to go back to when you talked about setting aside time for like schoolwork, and that was one of the challenges that my kids faced growing up. If they would finish their homework at school, or they did it, and then so we as a family decided, hey, at this certain time of the day, we're all going to do homework, and I always got the the comeback from the kids. I already did my homework. And I'd be like, well, that's great, but here's our designated time to do homework. So if you already finished your homework, read ahead, do something
mhm,
else in that allotted time. And what that does is builds that, that momentum. It builds that discipline in your head to, I have to do this during this time. I think that was helpful for them, even though they didn't recognize it at the time. It built those disciplines. That even if I don't have something, I still need to do this,
mhm,
and it gets you in that mindset of, okay, I should be doing something at this time. So if it's not just for, um, you know, again, you may be done with your stuff, but is you got that allotted time for something specific, you've already completed it, then move ahead, do something more. I mean, put yourself further ahead, and that's why I think they were all successful in college after a while, because they had learned that discipline of, okay, here's a set aside time that I need to do these things, and it's not the procrastination like you just talked about. I
mhm.
heard so many times, from different people that say, "Hey, I had a paper due on Sunday. I didn't start working on it till Saturday night. I was up till 1 in the morning trying to finish that." And my approach was, I know I've got a paper due on Sunday. Monday, I'm going to spend some time on it. Tuesday, I'm going to spend some time on it. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then by Saturday, I'm just finalizing it if I'm not already done with it. And for me, that approach worked better. Some people, again, they can, jump into it at the very last minute, but then you're relying on nothing else happens. You don't have an emergency, those types of things. And I'm always that person that not only has that plan A, plan B, sometimes that plan C, just in case, so you're not, held in, whatever comes up that you're struggling with. So again, if it's nothing else, it's more of a way to get you disciplined to doing certain things certain times. And to be honest, that's really what it comes down to. And that Dave kind of touched on it when he said, hey, I'm working out with these guys that are ripped muscles, things like that, but it's because they had that dedication to go, every day or whatever their schedule is, where you might have only been doing once every 2 weeks, and then expect those same results. It doesn't happen that way. And anything worth having is you got to set up the time to do it and make sure you're accomplishing that thing. So I just wanted to touch on that because, again, I think that's part of the challenge for all of us, is to dedicating that time. And then again, if just saying, "Oh, I'll get it to it the next day." Well, now you doubled up on the expectation for the next day, third day. So that's the problem with pushing it off or not sticking to that allotted time that you set to work on whatever that thing is.
Joe, you said something that really, really clicked in my head. We're talking about managing time for your success, and you've taken it one step further. You're talking about utilizing that time. You said that your kids got their homework done. So what are they going to do for that homework hour? Are they going to screw off, or are they going to do further perfect their craft? Get those, get that, the areas that they might just be a little concerned about and focus on those. And that reminded me again of being in the gym or exercising. It's like I'm going to exercise for 15 minutes today. Okay, I walked a mile in 15 minutes. Don't do that, folks. It's against everything your head says. But let's say the next time I walk a mile, it's in 13 minutes. What do I do with that 2 extra minutes? Let's say I'm bench pressing or working out with weights, and I say I'm going to work out for 15 minutes, and I get all my reps done in 15. Then the next time I get it done in 14. Next time I get it done in 10. Am I only working out for 10 minutes now? What am I doing with that extra 5 minutes that I have? Well, I'm going to do more reps, or maybe I'm going to bring
Yeah.
up the weight. So I'm working 15 minutes. And maybe then I start pushing myself instead of, well, 15, maybe I do 16 or 17 or 20
Yeah.
minutes. So it's that time utilization that you brought up that I think is absolutely imperative. It's one thing to manage your time. It's one thing to plan your time. It's another thing to manage your time, but to utilize that time
Absolutely.
is really the key element. And maybe that's what today's title should have been: utilizing time for your success. I mean, I think either one works, but to me, that progression is just the the aha moment, the head exploding,
Well,
because
and that's where I was just going to go. The you just said it, the progression piece. That's how you get the progression because, like you said, I think back to when I started, riding my bicycle a few years back, and the first time I got on the bike, maybe I rode a mile and a half or 2 miles, and then the next time I got on it, I rode 3 miles. And the next time it was 5 miles. Even though it wasn't time sensitive or, I would do it in 10 minutes and be done. It was the idea of I'm going to utilize this time. My body still feels good. I'm going to push it one step further. And that's kind of what you alluded to when you talked about maybe adding more weight, more reps. It's the same thing. You're moving forward, you're moving further. And that's what, again, same example with the kids, the idea, okay, you did your homework. Well, let's do something beyond that. That's something that wasn't in the scope of the homework.
mhm,
Let's push beyond that. It said learn your ABCs. Well, why don't you learn how to count? I mean, just in addition to you've got that thing mastered or you've completed that task, let's go to the next level. And that's again how you build that momentum, that consistency to utilize that time that you need to fill. Again, you've already accomplished it, so if I go back to my bike example, I started at a mile and a half to 2 miles. Eventually, I got up to riding 30 miles in one
you're such an
ride.
overachiever.
But it took that consistency, that continuing to push further and not reaching a mile and a half and then say, oh, well, I did mine for today. That would have just kept me at a mile and a half, over that 6 month period, however long it took me to get there. But every time I got on the bike, the intention was to go a little bit further each time. Even if it was just a quarter of a mile, I still went a little further than I did the day before.
you
So I
know,
think that's important, the progression piece that you talked about.
you're talking about this and you're mentioning things, and I go back to kind of my life in the corporate world where I look at people that are doing status quo. It might have taken me 8 hours to do my job the first 6 months, but after that, I was able to do it in 7, 6, five and a
Right.
half hours.
Yeah.
What am I doing with that extra time? Well, I do a project. Well, that project went well, but I didn't get the accolades. Am I done? No. What about another project? What about getting involved with other teams? What about improving the processes? What am I doing to manage that 8 hours
Right.
that's not status quo? Because I could watch that clock and say, okay, I have to get 100 widgets done this, or we'll say 60 widgets done today. Okay, I got my 60 widgets done. It took me 5 hours. So what am I doing? I'm stretching that out to where I get my 60 widgets
Right.
done right at 8 hours.
Yeah.
I'm not judging, but maybe I am. Is that really utilizing your time effectively? To some people that is, but to
Right.
me and to you, I know we're we're geared a little bit differently like some people where we want to do the best we can in the time that we have allotted to get the most out of it. for ourselves, for our team, for our company, for our organization. And then you're going back to where we were talking about for ourselves, for our education, for our fitness, for our mental health, for our family. I'm going to go back to when I was in school. One of my classmates said, Dave, you're spending too much time on your work assignments every week. Give yourself 6 hours over 3 days, and then give yourself a day off and a time with your family. And that forced me to utilize those 6 hours over 3 days the best possible way I could. Sometimes it was 2 hours at a time, sometimes an hour in the morning, hour in the evening, whatever. But utilizing that time and being conscious about that effort is so, so important.
Yeah, it's like you just said with anything, time for rest. I think that what you just pointed out was really great. The idea that they recommend that you take a day off, also take time to spend with your family, and again, that's management of your time, making sure you get these things accomplished in this period of time, and then you have time to reflect or relax. Because again, if you don't do that, I'll go back to that example I used of assignment due on Sunday and I push all the way to Saturday, that doesn't mean that I was maximizing my time during the week. That means I was probably, like you said, playing video games or doing, searching the web or whatever, YouTube, whatever I was doing wasn't contributing to the success of my plan. So just having that plan in place and having those times set aside for those certain things, it's amazing how efficient you become. And like like Dave said, you start out. It may take you 8 hours to do a certain thing, making your widgets or whatever it is. Eventually, you're going to get to 7, 6, 5. What do you do with that additional time? You make improvements on your process, get it down to 2 hours. I mean, that now you've got time to do all those other things. As long as you set a plan in place or doing those things, you're going to get efficient at it. You're going to get better at it. And then it just opens up more time for other things that you can continue to do. So it's not just, I've got a certain time, I got to wait to this time to get to that thing, because like, as we've already kind of identified, we may have already exceeded the expectation for that thing, but now we can reallot our time for something else to help us advance, to move forward. And we've said this so many times on the podcast. It's not about, getting there faster. It's about maximizing your time. And if you can get there sooner because you become more efficient, that's great. It just opens up more time for you to get other things done. And that's one of the common uh, thoughts or concerns people have about me. They're every time I explain everything I've done or do, they're like, "How do you have time?" Or "How do you
Did
get
you
a
really do
chance? You're
that? You couldn't have
busy."
really done all that.
Exactly, and it really comes down to the consistency, the discipline of doing things, and once you set aside those disciplines, or not set them aside, but establish those things, it becomes natural. It becomes really easy to follow, and you do realize you got more time in the day than you knew before, and that's really what you're trying to, get to.
Well, Dr. Joe, it seems about the time for that that time in our podcast where it's
The
a weekly
weekly
challenge.
challenge. Yeah.
So,
So this week's weekly challenge is, so now that you have your plan, right? We've been talking about plans. Set aside a dedicated amount of time to work on your plan. I think I said this at the very beginning. If I have a plan, and we've talked about this in previous episodes, it's great to have a plan. But if we're not, approaching our plan as we have to do these things, we have time set aside for it, then it's just a plan. It's useless. So now we want you to, again, figure out your plan, whatever your plan is, and now start applying time. Dedicate some time to do, half an hour a day, whatever time you have. Set that aside, do it, and again, you'll be amazed with the consistency of doing that, the discipline of doing that, how fast it'll turn into a regular thing that you do, and then you'll be looking at, okay, what can I do next? What more can I do? So again, weekly challenge is set aside a dedicated amount of time to work on your. And remember, we've got the journal out there for you to download, free download on our website, as well as the assessment and the diagnostics tool. So Utilize those things, and it's going to help you with your plan, your success, all those things. So again, take advantage of those free tools.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for bringing up the weekly challenge. We think this will contribute to your success. Again, we've had kind of a progression over the past several weeks of this train of thought, and we're planning on staying on this train for a little while. So, as always, we'd like to thank our viewers and listeners for joining us for another episode of the Journeys of Not So Ordinary People podcast, the podcast for mid career professionals. It applies to personal professionals as well, but this is kind of the focus where we're at. It's kind of a nice transition period for most people in their careers. And if this is your first time, thank you for joining us. We hope you got something out of it, maybe a couple of chuckles. If nothing else, laugh at us, laugh with us, just laugh, right? If you're returning, thank you for your support. We really appreciate it. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. You know, send us out to your friends, coworkers, peers. We love to help people. We love to get the word out on things that, so that people don't have to reinvent the wheel. And as usual, until next time, we want you to continue being your not so ordinary you.